Welcome to Thriving as a Physician, the podcast that teaches you to thrive in your weight loss and life while juggling a packed physician's schedule, because you deserve to thrive. Each week, I share sustainable, enjoyable tools that work in your busy life so that you can reach all of your goals faster with more confidence. Everything in this podcast is backed by my experience as an obesity medicine physician, years of coaching physicians on weight loss and eating, and my own personal weight loss journey. Let's get thriving. This podcast contains general educational information on weight loss for physicians. I am not providing medical advice, and listening to this podcast does not create a physician-patient relationship. This podcast does not replace the need for consultation with a licensed professional, and no information should be relied upon unless you have obtained specific advice or treatment from myself or another physician. Please review the terms and conditions located at www.weightsolutionsforphysicians.ca before continuing. Welcome to episode 359 of the Thriving as a Physician podcast, How to Lose Weight and Live Your Life. And today I'm going to be talking to you about top 5 myths. And I actually put a bonus one in here too, so there's 6. But I wanted to just give you kind of a quick overview of where is it that we're getting, or what information are we getting that's actually steering us wrong? What are the things that I see over and over and over again that people just have? And when I was thinking about recording this, they're not even myths. They're like these truths that we hold inside us because we've been exposed somehow to the messaging over and over and over again. And some of this messaging in some of these myths isn't direct. It's not like people are saying you must do it this way, but it's a consistent belief that I see people having, and it slows you down. So these are the things that aren't true and are also making your journey harder, making it harder to reach your goals, making you struggle more, making you feel like you're failing more. And all of that's not fair, and it's not actually needed. And that's why I wanted to record this for you. So if you're struggling, have a listen to these. You don't have to let go of all of them all at once, but maybe pick one to work on. Don't overwhelm yourself. Pick one, think it through, think of, okay, how could I let go of this? How could I, what if this wasn't true? That's a really good question to ask yourself when we're going against these beliefs that just feel so true. What if it wasn't true? And as we go through this, I think it's really good to know how our brains work when we think something over and over again. So with these myths and beliefs that we've held for so many years and they've been perpetuated everywhere we see, when we're thinking the belief and we think it must then be like this, what happens is your brain then looks and finds evidence to support that belief. So the things we believe in, our brain then goes and gathers more evidence and makes that belief stronger. And so when you're starting to let go of one of these, don't be surprised if you're like, but this, I have evidence here, but what about this time? And what about this time? Even if you have evidence, it may also not be true. And that can be a bit of a mind bend, but it also can be a huge relief if you're like, but what if this wasn't true? What if it didn't have to be that way? It's huge. And I can tell you when I was working on losing my weight, and for those of you who are newer to the podcast and haven't met me before, I'm Siobhan Key. I'm an obesity medicine physician and a family physician. And years ago, I could not stop eating. And I was a physician. It drove me bananas that I couldn't figure out why I couldn't stop eating. And I was struggled with my weight. I knew it was having health impacts on me, but I didn't know how to stop. And it took me a lot of years to figure out how to actually manage my eating and feel comfortable around food. And in that time, I was able to lose weight. But I can tell you during that journey, I believed all this stuff. And now I don't believe any of it. And I think as I started to let go of some of these beliefs, that's when things started to get easier and I actually started to move towards that goal. So consider that when you're listening to this, of like, what if letting go of these beliefs is actually the thing that's going to help you get to whatever goal you're working on? All right. Let's just jump in and get going. I'm doing this in the morning and I've got an office this afternoon. First day back from holidays. So you guys know what that's like. So number one, the biggest one that you see and that we just believe is if you're overeating, you should start a diet, right? If you're eating too much of the junk food, then you should choose a diet and that doesn't have junk food in it usually and follow that. And the issue with this, and the reason why this is a myth, is it doesn't work, because a diet doesn't solve the reason why you're overeating. A diet tells you what you should eat, in quotation marks around that should, but the reality is you probably already have a sense of that, right? Like when we're going through periods of our life where we're eating a lot of junk food, processed food, fast food, and we're not feeling good about it, we probably have a sense of what we think we should be eating instead, which is generally more real food, more vegetables, more fruit, more protein, less processed. And the issue usually is not, we just didn't know. Diets, if you can follow them, and I don't like the word diet, because by definition, a diet is like somebody saying, just eat this, don't eat this, and you'll be fine. And those aren't sustainable. But a way of eating where you maybe intentionally choose to limit some foods in your life can work and can help you reach some goals if you are able to follow it. And the issue when you're struggling with overeating is not a food issue. It's not usually that the food is so delicious you just can't stop yourself. It's that other things are driving your eating, and your brain is using food to try to feel better about those other things. Most commonly, just stress. Stress throughout your day that you may not even notice that you're getting stressed because you're so used to it and it's just there as a background. At some point, if you don't do other things to deal with it, your brain will say, okay, well, let's just eat. Let's grab some food. We're going to feel better. And you do briefly. So the really important thing is if you're struggling with overeating, a diet is not going to fix that. It's not going to address why you're overeating. You need to figure out, why is it that my brain's trying to use food? What is my brain trying to fix with the food? And how do I address it otherwise? And that's why I love coaching, and what I do inside my coaching program, Thrive Academy for Overeating, is that's what we do, is we figure out for each individual, what is it that food means to you? What is it that your brain's using it for? And then let's figure out better ways for your brain to accomplish the same thing. Just switching over to a diet and being like, okay, I can no longer ever have those foods, and now I'm only allowed to eat this stuff. What happens is your brain's like, but that was my coping strategy. And your brain will have a little bit of a freak out. It may be able to keep going for a short period of time, maybe days, maybe weeks. But at some point, it's going to be like, we have to do something. And if you don't replace that coping strategy, it's going to go back to food. And the issue with that is you'll feel like you failed. And it's not that you failed. It's that the diet didn't address the real issue. Okay, number 2, if you aren't reaching your goals, you should work harder, right? So many of us have tried this. Probably everybody listening, raise your hand if you have tried that. And the issue is, this is one area of your life where harder work doesn't work. As a physician, there's lots of places where the answer was, okay, put your head down, work harder. You're struggling with this topic, put your head down, study more. You don't understand how to do this procedure, go do it more. Go find more opportunities. You're struggling with this, of clinical situation, go research it, get more training on it if you need it. Work harder, right? There's more people that need to be seen. It's a busier day, you work harder. That's, as a physician, that's our life. The issue is overeating and binge eating and all the different forms of struggling with food don't respond to working harder. If we think about what I was talking about in the last myth, is that your brain is trying to fix something with food, and so often it's stress. You can see that if we work harder, we create more stress, it's going to give your brain more things to try to fix with food. Not to mention things that are hard work that you're really having to put your head down and work on aren't going to last, because at some point you're going to have a busy week and you won't be able to maintain that focus. So what's the answer? Well, the answer is, if you want to create real lasting change in your eating, it needs to be things that feel easy, deceptively easy, or maybe even uncomfortably easy, where you're like, this feels too easy. It might not work, because that piece of us that's so used to working hard freaks out a little bit when it feels easy. But that's actually the path. If it's easy and simple and feels good and you can do it even during your busiest weeks, that is going to be more sustainable. Hard work it's not sustainable during your busy weeks, and it doesn't actually address the real issue. So often when I work with somebody in my coaching program, I'm actually teaching them how to put less effort in. Because if we can put less effort in, it just feels simpler. It feels like you can take a deep breath. It feels less stressful to work on your eating, which then gives you more space to consider, okay, what other things might be driving my eating? What could I do differently? And it just makes the whole path feel easier. because it is easier because you are putting less effort in. And for all of you listening and your brain's like, but I don't think it can work if it's easy. If I'm not working hard, it's probably not going to work. And all I can tell you is it does. And man, it's a relief when you do it this way. It's so much nicer. I was going to say it's so much easier, but and it is, but it just feels so much nicer and it's more sustainable. I think if I'd held on to this one that I had to work hard to reach my goals, I never would have reached my goals because the way my life was, especially back then, because I was doing a merge, I was doing obs call, I had my practice, I had little kids. My life, there weren't very many easy weeks. There weren't many opportunities where I actually had space to think about my own stuff. And that's really, for me, one of the big challenges that created a lot of my eating issues is I just had no space for myself. I wouldn't have been able to continue. And I can look back and see that pattern of like, I'd be psyched up, I'd have all that energy, all that motivation, and then I just couldn't sustain it. Like I've talked about on this episode, I thought it was a me issue, and it's not. It's that we've been told it should be harder than it needs to be. It goes back to that anybody who lived through the 80s, the no pain, no gain mentality, right? And that's not actually true. What if it wasn't true? What if the answer for you was to not lean in and work harder? It was to find simpler solutions that felt easier, took less energy. Just think about that. Number 3, there is a right way that will fix everything. Man, can I tell you how many years I spent looking for the right way and how many different things I tried thinking they may be the right way? And for those of you listening, that's my air quotes voice, the right way. And there just isn't. I've been doing this work and coaching so many people on overeating in all forms. There is no one right way. And as long as we think there is, and we're looking for the one right way, what that does is it keeps you from seeing what the ways that might work for you are. And the ways that may work for you may look differently than whoever you're listening to that's preaching the right way. I really believe if you want to do this work and you want it to be long lasting and to do it and just continually move forward and not have that feeling that it's all going to go back to square one, the way you approach it needs to fit you. It needs to be customized to you, to the food you like, the schedules you keep, the other people you have to cook for in your house, whether or not you even like to cook, the foods that work for your body, because that doesn't even It's not like a broad, everybody, this works for everybody. Different bodies are different. Different bodies seem to respond better to different approaches to eating. And we need to give ourselves permission to explore what actually works for you. What works for you, what works for your body. You know, when you encounter an obstacle, instead of thinking somebody else knows the right way to get through it so you don't have these obstacles, the actual path is you need to look at that and be like, okay, what are some options that would work for me to get through this obstacle? P.S. Obstacles are always there. There will always be obstacles. There is no right way that means you don't encounter obstacles. And I think that's a bit of a tripping point in how we think about this is when we hit these obstacles, which are actually expected and a normal part of changing your behavior and moving towards a goal, we think we did something wrong. And we think if I had the right way, I wouldn't deal with this obstacle. But the obstacles happen regardless. And that's a really important piece to know when you're thinking about this. I really like talking to people that no matter what challenge you're facing, there are hundreds of different options that may work. And just feel how different that is compared to there's the right way and we have to hunt out and find the right way. And what if this one isn't the right way? What if the one that so-and-so's doing is actually the right way and we get all confused and stressed? And just feel how it feels different to be like, there's hundreds of options. There's hundreds of different ways I could fix this. A whole lot of them would work. And you get to choose which are the ones that actually feel right to you in this moment in your life. And the ones that work now in this moment in your life may not work a couple of years from now. Different stages of your life, you may choose different options, and that's totally normal. And again, that's actually what real life looks like rather than finding the right way and just trying to stick to it, right? So again, just think about when your brain's like, oh, but is this right? Is this? And just remind yourself there's hundreds of different ways I could approach this. It's all an experiment. It always was all an experiment with an N of one, meaning You are always doing an experiment on yourself to be like, okay, I'm going to try this, see how it works for me, versus this works and I just have to stick to it. And if it doesn't work, it means there's something wrong with me, right? It's a very different feeling. It's just an experiment. No matter what decision you make, no matter what approach you're using, you're doing an experiment. And there will always be opportunities to learn. You will take things away from it if you allow yourself to. Maybe aspects that did work, maybe aspects that really didn't work, things you really didn't like and can't see yourself doing long term, and maybe other ones that you did like. And you're like, you know what, that could work for me, but the whole picture didn't quite work. So now let's figure out how to take this piece and move forward with it. There's no one right way. Anybody who tells you they know the one right way, I would be hesitant, because it might be their right way. It might be what worked for them. Doesn't mean it's going to be yours. And like I said, the right way now for you, like even if it's fully customized for you right now and it's your right way, it's going to look different a year from now, 2 years, 10 years. It's always going to be changing because we are always changing. Our lives change, our bodies change. And when you're doing this long term and you're managing your eating or your weight long term, what you're doing will have to shift and adapt. And that's normal. That's just what it is. Okay. Number 4, you should expect to fight yourself around food. I see this so much where people are like, okay, I didn't eat that and it was okay. Like I had to really work hard, and it's like you have to like psych yourself up, but I didn't eat it. And we think that's a normal. And especially when you've lived life in a body that holds weight, or you've lived life with a brain that just really is attracted to food, you have spent most of your life fighting food. And the times where you have felt like you've been successful probably was that you were fighting the food and you're really wrestling with it. It's not sustainable. Like I said, if you want to make intentional choices to limit certain foods because of how they impact your health, because of how they impact your ability to reach your goals, we need to figure out how to do it where it feels easy. And if you're fighting it, that doesn't feel easy. That's not sustainable. It's uncomfortable. Because then you look around at other people and they don't seem to fight food. And then you're like, but why can they be around that food and not be fighting it? And I always have to fight it. It's not fair. And it's not. The reason why we think the only way to be around these foods is to fight and wrestle with them is because the only tool we've been given is willpower and just restriction and leaning on those two things. And they don't work. They're not a lasting tool. They work for a very short moment of time, but they often set you up for more challenges down the road. So what you really want, and I know this one might feel like a bit of a reach for some of you, but I promise you this is possible. You want it to feel like when you're around these foods, any food, your highest trigger foods that you've struggled with the most in your life, you want it to feel like you're just like, yeah, I'm fine. And like not even be bothered. Where you see it and you're like, yeah, I think I'm good. I don't feel like I want any right now. And you walk away. Or you're like, yeah, you know what? Maybe I'll have a little bit. Yeah, that's good. And then you move on. That's a relationship you want to have with these foods. Same sort of relationship you already have with a lot of different foods. Like think about veggie sticks. Most people aren't fighting themselves about veggie sticks, and they also generally aren't sitting there and compulsively overeating veggie sticks. Like you probably see them and you're like, sometimes you're like, yeah, I'll have a couple. Those look good. Or other times you're like, yeah, you know what? I'm fine. I'm not really hungry. That's a relationship we want to work towards with any food, and it is really possible. Last episode, I actually went through a lot of the tools of how do you do that in your real life. So make sure you check out that last episode. It was about how to actually have these foods in your house without feeling like they're controlling you, where you feel like you can have the foods and sometimes even forget that they're there. So have a listen to that episode, especially if you're listening to this section and you're saying, but Siobhan, I can't have something like ice cream at my house or else I eat it all. And I have to fight myself or else I eat it all. Have a listen to that episode for in-depth ideas about tools and how do you actually start to accomplish this. And really, this is like what we do inside my coaching program. And so it's something where if you're really struggling with this, it might be a good idea to come join us and just get my support with it. So you don't have to do it on your own because it's not something that other people really talk about or teach. Okay. Number 5, just hang in there till you hit your goal. And then once you get there, everything's going to be fine and you can finally relax. It's a total fallacy. There is no finish line. When you were working on your eating and you're working on weight goals or health goals, there's no point where you cross a line and you're like, I'm done. I can relax. you always have to keep doing it. If you are losing weight, the way you're eating to lose weight, you're going to have to continue some version of it and fairly close to the actual version to maintain it. I remember back when I was working on my weight loss, definitely there was periods where I thought, oh yeah, maintenance looks different. Maintenance means, and I think this may have come from like Weight Watchers years where they make a big deal of when you get into maintenance, then you get to do things differently. You get more points, right? If anybody's done that. And so I had this belief, okay, maintenance will look different and I just have to get there. And I can tell you, being at a maintenance, managing a significant weight loss for I think it's 10 years or so now, I've lost track. It does not look very different. There's maybe a tiny little bit more wiggle room, but it's not much. And it really is that I'm doing very similar things that I did to lose my weight as how I live now to manage it. So it's a lifestyle. It's a way of eating that I've adopted for my life and a way of approaching my stresses and a way of monitoring how I'm doing that works for me because it will continue to be that way. And the times over these years where I have kind of lost focus on it or just didn't have the energy to care because other stuff was going on in my life, the weight starts to come back because I, like many people, have a body that holds weight really easily. And so if I suddenly think like that arrival fallacy of, oh, once I get there, I can just eat all this stuff again. No, it doesn't work that way because then your body that is still the same body and in some ways may be more likely to gain weight if you've had an adjustment in your metabolic rate with your weight loss, then what happens is you just regain the weight. And again, the issue here is like it makes sense that happens. And yet we, when we're experiencing it, would think that we failed, that we messed up because we can't just eat everything. So if it will always need to look this way, if you will always need to continue the way you're eating to lose weight to maintain it, or the way you're eating to manage whatever health issues you're managing to maintain managing them, then you better like what you're doing, right? It takes us away from that idea of, oh, I can put up with this horrible thing, this horrible diet that I don't actually like, because once I get there, I can go back to my normal. No. Right from the get-go, do stuff you like. Eat food you love. Eat food that tastes good. And if you can't figure that out, and that's okay if you can't, at the beginning, especially if you're really used to eating a lot of processed foods, it's a learning curve to figure out, okay, what are the real foods that actually work for me? And, what foods do I like? And it may even take time to build a taste for some foods. If you're not used to eating vegetables, things like that, it may take time to reintroduce, kind of like what we talk about with feeding toddlers, for you to develop a taste for some things. But it's worth it. And don't wait until the end thinking that, oh, then I can eat all this good food, because you can always eat any food is an important piece, but you can't just totally go back to the way you were before, because your body will go back to the way it was before, or your health issues will go back to the way they were before. Okay. Number 6, your bonus out of your 5 myths. This is a bonus one that I just had to put in here is if you were doing it right, you would be there already. Think of how often we say some version or feel some version of this in our own journeys is I should be there already. And the fact I'm not means I'm doing things wrong. It's just not true. Everybody has their own path. Everybody has their own pace, and it's okay that we have different paths and different paces. And just because you aren't there yet, wherever there is, doesn't mean you've done something wrong. What it says to me is there's just probably some skills that maybe you need to learn or different ways you need to be approaching. Like if you've been following these myths and this is how you've been approaching it, well, the first thing I would say is start letting go of some of these. Do it differently. Continuing to do the same thing over and over again, if it's not getting you where you want to go, won't suddenly start getting you where you want to go. And we have to let go of that idea of if it's not working, it's just an issue with me and I just have to try harder and follow it better. If it's not working, it's not working. Honor yourself that there's probably really valid reasons why it's not working for you and figure out, okay, what would work? What would be more helpful for me? All right. Like I said, as you listen through these, think of what are, 1 or 2 of them you want to work on letting go. I think your brain may explode if you try to let go of all of these all at once, but just start asking yourself, what if that wasn't true? When you notice these types of thoughts come up, what if that's not true? Throughout your day, just be curious. question more and see what you come up with. And if struggling with food and feeling out of control with food is something that you've really struggled with throughout your life and it's hard and you've tried and you want to have a feeling more like what we've been talking about today, then come join us inside Thrive Academy for Overeating. You can learn more about it at start2thrive.ca. It's a month-to-month program. There's no commitment, no contract, so you can come and stay as long as you want. It's priced at a point where it makes it easy for you to join, and you get direct access to me. So instead of trying to interpret all the podcast stuff and apply it to your life, what it means is you come and you hand your issues to me and you say, hey, Siobhan, this is going on. And we work together to find a path that actually feels good and is going to last for you. All right. So that's start2thrive.ca. It's start and then the number 2 thrive.ca. And also come on over and hang out with me on Instagram or Facebook at Dr. Siobhan Key, DrSiobhanKey. If you're loving this podcast, if it's been helpful to you, please consider leaving a review. It really does help the podcast get found. And also really consider sharing it with a friend. That one of the best things for podcasts is word of mouth. I'd really appreciate it if you shared it with people that you care about and that you think would benefit from it. All right. Have a fantastic day, guys. We'll talk to you later.